Hey everyone, it's Lydia, your favorite CPA. I hope you all are doing well and had a wonderful long weekend. I'm sure many of you guys are very excited about, businesses and everything reopening. And I just want to remind everybody that just because things are reopening doesn't mean that the virus is gone. So, continue to use your safety measures and to keep yourself, your family, and those around you safe. I also know there are many people, including myself, that are totally okay with staying home a little while longer. Let the first wave of brave souls go out there. We'll give it a few weeks, see how it goes, and then maybe we'll poke our heads out. So just be safe, and I hope everybody's doing well. I definitely miss interacting with people, but I guess for now this will have to do. So thank you for stopping by. I wanted to share a personal experience I'm going through right now as a business owner, as it relates to the stimulus loans that are out there. So I actually won't be talking about the Paycheck Protection Loan program loan. I'm actually going to talk about that in a few days, especially now that the loan forgiveness applications are out there. But I am going to talk about the EIDL loan. So as you guys know, I am a CPA. And as a CPA, most of my revenue is made during tax season, and everything started happening during tax season. So needless to say, there was an economic injury to my business. The revenue started to slow down. We had to incur additional expenses for equipment and software and applications to enable the team to work from home, to work remotely. So, there's that. And then there's also just forward thinking. When I do planning with my clients, my small business clients, we don't just think short term, we plan long term. And so in addition to everything that's going on right now, I'm also thinking, okay, what's next tax season going to look like when we fully understand the impact that everything that's happening right now and throughout the rest of the year, how it's going to impact my business next year. And so when the stimulus packages were coming out, the PPP loan, the economic injury disaster loan, also known as the EIDL loan, like most small businesses, I applied for the loans. And like I said, I'm going to just focus on the EIDL loan right now. So I applied for the EIDL loan, which is the one that you apply for directly with the SBA. And I applied for that loan maybe a couple of days after the online application became available on the SBA website. Got the confirmation it's been received. I'll hear back from somebody soon. And 2 days turned to 2 weeks. And almost 2 months later, where I thought, okay, I'm probably not going to get this loan, I got an email saying, hey, you've been pre-approved. Just need you to confirm your information, and you'll hear back from us in a few days. So did what I had to do. 2 days later, I got the email saying I had been approved. Whew, right? What a load off, right? Good. I'm gonna have funds, to make sure I am able to continue paying my staff, paying rent, paying my utilities, keep the office going and everything. But as with all contracts and all loans, anything that I have to sign, I like to review to make sure I understand what I'm signing up for. So I printed out what's called the loan authorization and agreement, which is something that any borrower has to sign if you apply for this economic injury disaster loan through the SBA. So I printed it out so I can jot down my notes and stuff. So most of us know the general terms, right? There are certain terms that we knew to expect, right? We have 30 years to pay back the loan. The interest rate is capped at 3.75%. Most of us knew that you would have a 12-month grace period between when you get the loan and when you have to make your first payment. We know that the loan has to be used for certain expenses, including, working capital. So, paying your staff, paying your rent, utilities, whatever you need to keep the business afloat. We knew that. But then there were some terms in here that I did not expect. And that's what I wanted to kind of go through with you guys. This isn't to say not to take the loan or to take the loan. I'm not here to make your decision. I'm here to just implore you to be informed and to go back and read your loan agreements and make sure you understand what you're signing up for, okay? There are a lot of terms on here. I'm not going to go through all of them. So again, make sure you go back and read the loan agreement before you sign it. So the first thing that stood out for me was about making your payments, right? So like I said, there's a 12-month grace period. And I think most people expected or should know that between that 12-month period, even though you're not making any payments, interest is accruing. Okay, that's fine. I think we all assume that we would get whatever loan amount we've been approved for, we'll get the whole amount at once, and that'd be that. But there's language in here that kind of implies that there's a possibility that you may not get the full loan amount in one payment. It might be spread out. And the reason I say that is because there's some verbiage, some language in here that says you will be responsible for making your payment when it's due, even if you haven't received the full loan amount or if the loan amount has been reduced. I'm sorry, come again? Yeah, you heard it right. So that means that if for whatever reason, and it doesn't really state what scenarios would cause that, that you don't get the full loan amount that you've been approved for, by the time the payment is due, you still have to make those payments. And so that kind of, stood out for me. Another item that stood out is the idea of collateral. So, we all know that this loan is backed by the government, by the SBA, and I think we kind of just assume that meant it's unsecured, that they're not going to come after our assets or whatever. And there's a language in here that says if you take a loan of more than $25,000, then pretty much all your property becomes collateral. And it says, it's tangible and intangible property that you own now and property that you will own in the future. And that was, I wasn't expecting that, and again, I point out that it is for loans that are $25,000 and over. And remember what collateral is. Collateral just comes into play if you go into default. So if you're unable to make your payments, then this lender, being the SBA, can come after your assets, force you to, sell them, liquidate your assets in order to be able to satisfy the loan. Okay, so hopefully we're all in a position where we will be able to make our payments when they come due. So, hopefully that's the case. But in the event that, unfortunately, if you can't for whatever reason, then know that your property can be at risk. Now, another interesting term that I want to point out about the collateral is that it also mentions that once it becomes collateral, once your property becomes collateral, that you cannot transfer or sell that property without letting the SBA know and actually getting written consent to be able to sell it. So let's think about that for a second. This loan is a 30-year loan, right? And you don't make your first payment until 12 months later. Let's say you go into autopilot, right? Where your payments are just automatically being deducted. Hopefully we're back into a normal operations, right? And then you decide to sell an old printer, or you decide to sell your old furniture, or whatever the case may be. You may be in breach of contract if you forget to let the SBA know that you are transferring these assets. And so, you need to be aware of what your obligations are under this loan agreement. And, keep in mind that, right now we're all experiencing working remotely, and a lot of companies, and I'm sure you're seeing in many articles in the news, many companies now are venturing into making this a permanent situation where everybody will be working from home. And so that means that you may not need that office space anymore, and you may sell your furniture. If you own a property, you may sell it. You have to remember to get permission, consent from the SBA. So keep that in mind. The next thing that kind of stood out, and it relates to collateral as well, is the requirement to maintain hazard insurance. And so you have 12 months between when you get the loan. You have a 12-month period to go ahead and maintain and get that hazard insurance. And the coverage has to extend to about to cover 80% of the insurable value of all the collateral. Again, keep in mind what the collateral is. It's pretty much everything, tangible and intangible property that you own now and are going to own later. And so you want to, you have to, one, keep in mind that when you get new property, first of all, you have to remember to get the hazard insurance. Then you have to remember when you get new things to add it to under your coverage. And then, so those are things to keep in mind. Another thing is that it's not clear whether you can actually use loan proceeds to purchase that hazard insurance. But, again, let's think about the reason that we're taking this loan, or why businesses are taking these loans. It's because they're trying to keep their doors open. They're trying to have as much income there to offset any lost revenues, which also means you're probably trying to reduce your expenses. And, you're signing for this loan, and, if it's over $25,000, you have to now incur this expense of getting hazard insurance to cover all your property. In essence, all your property. Okay, so that's another item. And the other thing is the requirement to have proper books and records. There's actually a whole section about books and records. As a CPA, this is fine with me, and for my clients as well, we do keep proper books and records. And I'm sure you understand the reason why it is important to have books and records. One, just for your company and all, but in general, think about the application process when you're applying for these loans, all the information they ask for. And so when you have proper books and records, it facilitates that process and makes it a little easier. But under these agreements, there's a whole section that says you have to have proper books and records. And the reason being is, keep in mind that this loan, you're supposed to spend it on certain expenses. You can't just spend it on anything. You can't use it to actually expand your business or, buy a yacht or whatever the case may be. It's to keep your business afloat. And so it's certain expenses that are eligible for to be paid for using these loan proceeds. And so the SBA wants a mechanism in place to be able to verify that you are indeed using the loan for certain expenses. Also, they want to be able to check that you're not using the loan or you're not claiming the same expenses that you are getting, that you're using the Paycheck Protection Program loan and getting that forgiven, and then also claiming the same expenses as for the EIDL loan. And so they want to be able to verify that, and so they're requiring that you have proper books and records. So this is not a joke. You really have to keep that. So if you don't have an accountant, I happen to know one. This way, I happen to know one. So give me a call if you need help with your accounting. That's what I'm here for. But another interesting thing about in this part of the agreement is that upon written notice, the SBA may require you to retain an independent accountant to provide a review report. So you have to pay for an independent accountant to come review your books and give the SBA some kind of assurance that, hey, yes, their books and records are correct. They are using the loan for the right expenses, so on and so forth. And so who has to pay for that? You do. And I can tell you as a CPA, audits and reviews are not cheap. So, again, it's another thing to consider, another thing to think of, that, again, you're trying to reduce your expenses. And here, by signing this loan agreement, you may be subjecting yourself to incurring these additional expenses as part of this loan process. So the last thing, I point this out because you may inadvertently breach a term of this contract and not even know, okay? And so if that happens, what are the penalties? This is a federal loan, right? And so it comes with really, really severe penalties. So there are civil and criminal penalties involved. So with the criminal penalties, I would say the larger your loan, the more risk you may have. But it's a high bar. They have to be able to show that it was fraud, there was intent, gross negligence. So it's a pretty high bar. But there are also civil penalties, right? So the example I gave of if you forget to notify the SBA that you sold this piece of property that was supposed to be collateral, or you forgot to get the hazard insurance, you may be subject to civil penalties. And one of those penalties is that the entire loan may become due immediately. So keep in mind, let's think about that a loan that you had a span of 30 years to pay may become due immediately because you accidentally breach a term that you didn't even know was in here. And so those are just some of the things. Again, I really, really encourage you to take your time to review the terms of the loan. You have 30 days from the time that you are approved to sign the loan agreement. And so take your time to make sure you understand what's in there. If you need to work with an attorney or a CPA, do so. And now that I bring it up, there actually is a term in here that says, you know, if you hire an attorney, CPA, hire an expert, anything related to the loan application or whatnot, you may actually have to get consent from the SBA, or at least notify the SBA. And so again, make sure you understand what you're signing. I'm not sharing this to tell you not to take a loan. I mean, you know, I don't know what your specific situation is. Your need for loan may far outweigh any of the apprehension you may have related to the terms. But again, you just want to go in informed and know what you are obligated to do and what you're subject to, so that you're not caught off guard later. So I hope this was helpful. You know, follow me on Instagram, Facebook, Twitter. Share this with your friends and families that you know are, you know, maybe considering one of these loans. And just with any contract, any agreement that you're signing, you want to make sure you understand the terms. And it doesn't necessarily mean you're going to change your mind, but again, you want to be informed. So I hope this was helpful. And I hope to hear from you guys soon. Drop a note. Another thing about small business, you know, if you're a small business, we'd love to support you. Go ahead in the comment sections, wherever you're watching this. Feel free to put the link to your website, so that way other people can support you. We can support one another. That's what we're here for. So good luck with everything, and we'll talk soon. Be safe, y'all.